Hello, and welcome to another presentation of 5-Minute Cybersecurity. People are the weakest link in cybersecurity. They are vulnerable when interacting with fraudulent email and websites. Today, I will outline a plan to make your defenses people-proof. I am Bill Osolinski, a certified information systems security professional with 30 years of experience. Spam filtering. Spam filtering most often occurs at the mail server and uses lists, content, and DNS lookup. Lists are broken down into blacklist, always reject, whitelist, always accept, and graylist, unknown. They may be user-provided or publicly maintained. Content-based filters use either words, heuristic logic, or Bayesian logic. In heuristic logic, the message is parsed to locate suspicious words and then assign a score based on their occurrence. Bayesian logic studies the messages you flag as spam to evaluate the likelihood of future messages. DNS lookup uses the MX, SPF, and DKIM records of the sending domain's DNS to determine if the messages are legitimate. Keeping fraudulent email messages from users prevents them from making an error. Content filtering. Content filtering most often occurs at the firewall and uses categorized lists of websites, text strings, and objects within images to define undesired or objectionable content. The types of information filtered are often mentioned in an organization's acceptable use policy. Keeping fraudulent websites away from users prevents them from making an error. Training. Fraudulent email messages attempt to get users to act using greed, fear, or compassion, all with a sense of urgency. Fraudulent websites duplicate legitimate websites attempting to get people to use them by mistake. Training creates awareness of these tactics, so messages that made it by spam filtering and websites that made it by content filtering will be avoided. Malicious site blocking. If a fraudulent email message makes it past the spam filter and a user chooses to click on it, malicious site blocking prevents the user's action from completing. The same for a fraudulent website getting past the content filter and the user clicking on it. Malicious site blocking can happen in the firewall and in the endpoint security program. The sites are identified by vendor-maintained lists and geographical location. This minimizes the impact of an incident. Malware scanning. If spam filtering, content filtering, user training, and malicious site blocking all fail and the email message or website launches some malware, then malware scanning will identify and try to terminate the malicious program. Malware scanning can happen in the firewall or in the endpoint security program. Malware is identified by pattern matching, behavioral monitoring, and predictive machine learning. Pattern matching identifies malware by comparing it to known varieties. Behavioral monitoring identifies programs exhibiting suspicious behavior. Predictive machine learning creates a virtual sandbox to test unknown programs before allowing them to execute. This also minimizes the impact of an incident. Security protocols. Security protocols are processes designed to validate potentially dangerous actions. One example is multi-factor authentication, which requires a second method of authentication, protecting against a user disclosing their password. Another example is separation of duties, when more than one person is required to authorize a financial transaction. Yet another way to minimize the impact of an incident. Incident monitoring. An incident occurs when either malicious site blocking or malware scanning identify a threat. Incident monitoring keeps track of these events along with which user or device they occurred. Reports of incidents help to identify where user training is not sufficient so improvements can be made. Conclusions. By utilizing multiple layers of controls, you can limit access to fraudulent content, train people to recognize and avoid it, minimize the damage when it is accessed, and identify persons who require additional training. If you find this video useful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And thank you for your time.